What's up, everybody? It's Andre. I'm going to share something a little bit personal, but not really details about my personal life, just some kind of a life or religious concept that I've been really learning about and leaning into and understanding more as I live this. I do want to talk about love. I've talked about it before and really what it means, what it is, and um, what I've been discovering about it. Um, so as Catholics, as a Catholic, I define love. The Church's teaching defines love as willing the good for another as other. So why the emphasis on as other? It's because you can will the good for another person and still want something in return. You know, what goes around comes around. But this isn't about reward. When you say willing the good for another as other, you just want good for them, nothing in return. That's it. And that is, agape, unconditional love that we try to teach and something we try to live in the Christian life. And it's something very, very difficult because when we think about the Christian life, we think about this, it's the Christian life is not a wish fulfillment thing. It's not about, oh, now that I'm Christian, I'm going to have a peaceful life of sunshine and rainbows. No, Jesus' life ended in the cross, and Jesus' life was a perfect life without sin, full of love. And so I want to talk about like the freedom I've been discovering as I really assimilate into love, which is God Himself, because we believe God is love. And I just want to say that having lived a life of sin, a lot of sin, and some of you guys who know me might not even be able to imagine the things that I've done. And that's part of the reason, it is the reason I've really I'm trying to kind of turn my life around, make amends, and just live a redeemed life, with Jesus. And what it's come to is that, right now I am suffering. I mean, I'm isolated a lot of the time. I'm just focused on work and family right now. I'm not doing much else. Separated from a lot of people. And it's a lot of stress, in work life, personal life. And, but, I've been listening to a lot of Bishop Barron. Every time I drive, I listen to the Word on Fire podcast, and I'm listening to the entire podcast beginning to end. And Bishop Barron, he's very consistent. He talks a lot, he repeats a lot of the same things. And one of the things he talks about is like the golf swing, where if you're going to play golf, you cannot just, free will doesn't mean, oh, I get to do whatever I want. Maybe in some way that is what free will defines, but it's not freedom. Freedom is something different. So when you're going to play golf, it's like there is an end to golf. There is a goal. So the goal is to get the golf ball in the hole. And so in order to do that most efficiently, you have to follow all the rules of the golf swing. You have to get a perfect golf swing. And there are a lot of things you have to not do in order to get a perfect golf swing. So Bishop Barron likes to say, if you give a golf club to a kid, you're not going to tell him, go swing away and see what happens, Sure, I mean, he can figure it out. But if you really want to give him an advantage, you would teach the kid, hey, here's how to do a proper golf swing. This is a good form. This is how you follow through, stuff like that. These are the rules. Now, coming back to the Christian life is living a life of love. And there are a lot of rules that come with that. I mean, we have the 10 Commandments, which is don't do this, don't do that, don't kill anyone, don't lie, don't steal. And it's a bunch of no's, But Jesus said, what is the greatest commandment? Is to love the Lord God with all your heart, all your might, and all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And within those 2 commandments is all the commandments, because if you had love, then you wouldn't kill anyone. If you had real love, wanting good for other people, then you wouldn't lie or you wouldn't steal, and it would come naturally. So, having lived a life of sin, I was not loving. And what happens is the slavery of sin. And I've heard that phrase many times before, but now that I'm trying to get away from it, I can feel the freedom that comes with, getting away from that slavery. And what does that slavery mean? Well, not only addiction to the sin itself, which is a form of slavery, but all the damage done and the consequences of those sin is another form of slavery, because it's like, oh, I have to deal with all this stuff all this mess that I put myself in. And in a way, I'm still in that. And so the sin has enslaved me, but I've kind of enslaved myself. I put myself in this scenario. But even in this scenario, love gives a sense of freedom, because when you have that love, it doesn't matter what situation you're in. You could be in prison. You could be, you can be, I don't know, anywhere. And you can still have that will for the good of others, as other. And there's something fulfilling about it, because I know I'm doing what's right. If I know I'm doing what's right, then what more do I need for myself? If I am living a life in tune with God's will, then I don't need anything else. That infinite fulfillment of my irascible, what's the word? Not irascible. I know there's the irascible appetite. Those appetites, those insatiable appetites. That's the word. The only thing that can satisfy the insatiable appetite is the infinite. And the more you assimilate to love, the more you feel and kind of have access to the infinite, because it starts radiating from within. I use that word a lot, radiating, because that's what it feels like. There are times when, and I've read St. Teresa of Avila's Interior Castle, there are times when you're in prayer and you start kind of feeling it welling up from inside. That's the best way I can kind of describe the feeling of it. And I know she even writes, don't trust your feelings, but it's more than a feeling. It's like this soul condition where, if you're in a state of sanctifying grace, you're doing the will of God, and then God can choose to give you the Holy Spirit. He can choose to move you. He can choose to move your body, or move you from the inside, and you start assimilating to that, and you start realizing, okay, this is the right life. So this is what I'm learning. This is what I'm trying to do. For my neighbor. It's like I'm at a point where if I have to live nomadic in my car, if I'm doing, driving around for Uber, if I'm doing art commissions in my car, if I'm trying to run a business from some place of isolation, I'll do it. There's so many things that once you start only willing the good of other as other, you stop needing for yourself. I stop being needy. Yes, I have needs. Sure, I need to eat. Yes, I need a social connection. But then I start realizing the infinite, like having God is all I need. Like, it's so much better than everything else. And that fulfillment, that quote unquote meaning of life, it's like I found it. It's like the Christian journey is complete when you become close to God. When you start becoming one with God, you have that unity with God. And that doesn't mean the suffering ends. No, it's the opposite. Like, the suffering kind of increases, which is something I've learned too. So Jesus was innocent, right? Crucified, but innocent. Crucified for the atonement and expiation of all sins. So everything, past, present, and future. He was the divine sacrifice to God. So without getting too deep in the theology, what does that mean? The suffering servant, the suffering lover, the bridegroom, he loved us. And what was the result of that love? Well, all the people who chose not to, follow the will of God, hurt him and nailed him up on that cross. And yet he, being God, was willing to do that. And this is all like basic stuff in the Catholic faith. This is basic. But when you start living it, you start realizing that maybe Jesus, when he was doing that deed, certainly he was suffering. But knowing he was doing the will of God and was perfectly aligned to the will of God, there must have been a joy in that. Because I'm starting to feel that amidst my suffering, that there is a joy in giving. And you start to feel the joy in suffering. So many years people have told me, find joy in your suffering, through prayer and stuff like that. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, because when I suffer, I suffer. When I suffer, I'm selfish. I get needy. I'm like, I start wanting to medicate. I start wanting to escape. But now it's like, no, let's sit in it and find the path of love. Let's find it and let's do it. So that's really what I'm trying to focus on. And it's been life-changing, I would say. For those of you, just to get a little bit more into my personal life, I am in a 12-step program. without saying, what it's about, because there's many 12-step programs, but I'm in one. I'm on step 3, which is having the willingness to turn one's life and one's will over to God. And am I willing to do that? Yes, but there's so many steps. It's an active thing. It's an action I need to choose now and every day. And as Saint Teresa said, don't trust the consolations. I find joy in it, but I might not always find joy in it. If I have to experience the dark night of the soul, then so be it. It's more about doing God's will. It's more about loving. It's more about that than anything else. So, yeah. I'll talk to you guys later. That was kind of my spiel for now. God bless you all. Bye-bye.